The Isle is not a fighting game, a statement that has become more and more common during the past few months. You can see it in my comment section, on Discord. Even the Isle developers themselves have said it, so at first glance, they should be correct, right? Well, obviously the Isle is not a fighting game. We all know it is a dinosaur survival. There's no margin for confusion when it comes to this game's categorization, but unfortunately things are not as simple as this. This argument on its own is indeed correct, but the true problem here is the context where it's used. You always see this sentence being thrown around every time one topic, and one topic is specific, is talked about. And that subject is balancing. This is important because there's a clear thought pattern that leads people to this conclusion. But here's the kicker: they are wrong, and I'm going to explain you why. Fighting games are notorious for their ultra-competitive nature and very high skill ceiling. This is an extremely complex and demanding genre that requires extensive knowledge, coordination, reflexes, strategy, and accurate inputs from players. As a result of these characteristics, playable characters represent nearly 100% of the game's content and replayability level. The fewer fighters it has, the smaller the game is to an extent. And due to that, balancing is an equally vital component to its success and longevity. In titles like Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter and Tekken, the minimal of imbalances are not only noticeable by the community, but is also immediately reflected by how the game is perceived and played. There is a reason why the worst fighting games also possess an awful roster balance on top of all the other issues. The technical advantage or disadvantage players have while playing unbalanced characters is so significant and impactful that it has the real possibility of artificially limiting the game's content and make the game feel smaller even though it isn't, and to heavily damage the level of enjoyment people have whenever they interact with that problematic character. Whenever players say that the Isle is not a fighting game, they imply that the Isle doesn't require perfect balancing of all playables and all possible matchups, that dinosaurs don't need to or shouldn't be equally balanced. And they are right. They shouldn't. No dinosaur functions the same way, and therefore they shouldn't be able to fight or defeat any other member of the roster equally. I mean, they are tiers for a reason. Besides, if balancing was done with that purpose, that in and on itself would remove immersion from the game, which already heavily relies on immersion. But the thing is that the overwhelming majority of people that argues in favor of balancing don't want that to begin with. Obviously there are some outliers, but most people want the game to be fair, not equal, and that's a huge difference. Each dinosaur has a different niche and playstyle that caters to a specific player base, and some of those niches aren't combat oriented. Dryos are designed for people that enjoy fast movement characters with high mobility and defensive capabilities that coincide with its fast-paced way of play, like their dodging ability. Being small, fast to grow, low food maintenance, quick on their feet, and being able to avoid pretty much all sorts of confrontation, Dryos attract players that enjoy their passive and sometimes prankster playstyle. It may not be a super popular dino, but there are some that do like to play this way, and the game offers them a character that not only provides that, but it does so in an immersive way with its character choice. After all, it would feel very out of place if they chose Pecky instead. The problem only truly begins when two things start to happen. Either when dinosaurs don't have the means to survive properly, or when specific species are portrayed not in a different manner, but rather in an inferior one. Megasaurus is a perfect example of the former. Maggie is a small sauropod. In real life, this dino lived in an isolated island of Romania. With a small area at its disposal and with no natural predators, Maggie slowly got smaller and smaller over time, a common phenomenon that occurs in small and remote pieces of land. During the time they lived away from the rest of the world, they thrived with no issues since they had absolutely nothing threatening them. However, when the island eventually reunited with the European continent, the species went extinct in a heartbeat due to having absolutely no means of defending themselves. In the Isle, Maggie is from the very beginning expected to be a fragile sauropod incapable of killing a big portion of the carnivorous roster, but it is also expected to be able to survive in this extremely hostile environment, somehow. So the developers had to plan mechanics to compensate for their vastly unfavorable conditions without making it overly unrealistic. Their solution is to, apparently, make it faster than aloes and have distasteful meat in order to make them undesirable food source. This is a terrible idea in all possible levels. Not only they plan on making a mini sauropod faster than a relatively quick mid-tier ambush predator, who was later confirmed to be the only carnivore with an ambush speed ability like in Legacy by the way, but also having a mechanic that only applies when you're already dead. Just because they won't feed predators well, doesn't mean carny players won't keep hunting them. If anything, this feature alone will most likely increase Maggie's mortality rate rather than reducing it, since players will, without a shadow of a doubt, kill Maggies as a form of griefing for the simple fact that they can't eat them. Players don't like Maggie not because of the animal itself, but because of how the developers intend Maggie to be in the game, and by the looks of it, this dino will be so unviable that nobody will play it. It reminds me of something. Now, a good example of species being portrayed in an inferior manner is our friend Parasaurolophus. Hadrosauruses are large and bulky plant eaters sharing many similarities to apex herbies like Shantungosaurus, albeit somewhat smaller. This creature is larger and heavier than the majority of the roster, nearly crossing the line of apex tier, and people were expecting that. A large herbivore that, despite not being insanely strong, it would be strong enough to defend itself against mid-tier carnivores. What are we getting? Ah, that's right, a looker, a skittish herder that uses sonic roars to stun their opponents, to then run away. An almost 4-ton wall of meat is treated like a deer, almost forced to behave like one. Their sonic ability is not a problem, mind you. If anything, that's the only good part in its entire concept art. And the issue is not this playstyle in specific either. There is nothing wrong with a creature that emits loud noises to confuse its predators and uses that as a way to escape. That playstyle is immersive and works in games like the Isle, but not on this animal. This doesn't meet the player base's expectations we had for Para. Not only that, this set of abilities makes it significantly less appealing and puts it in an unnecessarily bad position. Let's assume that Para will come to Evrima with more or less the same stats it had in Legacy. And by that I mean a mid-tier herbivore with low to average damage, somewhat fast, tons of stamina, and that takes around 3 to 4 hours to grow. Possibly a lot more in a new branch since diets vastly increase or decrease growth depending on how the players perform. If that would be the case, we would be essentially putting a comparable amount of time and effort that we do to grow a stego, but the outcome would be an objectively inferior dinosaur. Who would want to grow a stegosaurus if they did a third of the damage, had half its health, and the whole creature was designed around fleeing from danger? This isn't about Paras being able to kill every possible opponent. This is about making the dinosaurs capable of surviving in the game's environment while at the same time matching with people's presumptions and possessing an immersive and engaging niche. This is the real balancing problem we have in the Isle. Either dinosaurs have no conceivable way to properly survive, or species with playstyles that don't match their anatomy or the community's expectations for the worse. There's also another interesting pattern seen during these discussions that we need to consider. Many times this argument is used precisely to defend unbalanced aspects of a game, or more specifically, unbalanced aspects of some dinosaurs. it is commonly mentioned, even by some of the devs, that as a survival game, the Isle must not be balanced as it indirectly interferes with the immersion aspect it provides, and by focusing on the former, the game would potentially lose its level of realism. Would it really? It is very peculiar that these arguments are always presented whenever people are defending that carnivores should be stronger or superior to herbivores. There's a huge stigma that predators are killing machines, terrifying everything they come across, and being able to easily kill everything they want, with herbivores scarily roaming in herds with the hopes that no meat eater sees them. Did these people ever watch documentaries? Herbivores are usually the biggest, strongest, and most dangerous animals on the entire planet. They are hunted since the dawn of time. Do you think their bodies wouldn't be built to defend themselves? Some species are indeed adapted to flee from predators like deer and gazelles, but even those do fight carnivores away on occasion, especially mothers defending their offspring. And these are small creatures. Pick a bigger herbivore and chances are that most of them can easily clap whenever tries to kill it. Not to mention that predation is not easily at all. In real life, the global average predation success rate doesn't even reach 50%, with the most popular carnivores like wolves, lions and tigers not surpassing 20%. These animals not only fail most of the time, they are also at risk of their own safety while doing it, with 5% of predator deaths occurring during a hunt or due to injuries post-hunt. So if realism was truly the priority, carnivores, especially apexes, wouldn't be as strong as they are being planned to be. This is not realism. This is a biased perspective on how nature functions, a depiction commonly seen in fictional media with carnivores being the highlight. But that is not how reality works, and since this game is presented itself as being realistic, shouldn't be like that either. The Isle is not a fighting game, is nothing more than a poor excuse and shallow argument that tries to defend an unbalanced game with a biased point of view of nature disguised as realism. A huge thank you to my Patreon supporters for supporting the channel and the content I create. If you want to join the ranks, the link will be in the description. Don't forget to leave your thoughts and opinions down below, join our Discord server for memes and period and that stuff, and I hope to see you next week.